I's Mollie Williams. I lives in Terry, Mississippi. If and I lives till next September 15, I'll be 84. I was born about 3 miles from Utica on the Newsom place. Me and Brother Hamp belonged to Marse George Newsom. Marse George was named after George Washington up in Virginia, where he come from. Miss Marguerite was his mistress. My mammy? Well, I'll have to tell you about her. You see, Marse George come off down here from Virginia, like young folks venturing about, and married Miss Marguerite, and wanted to start up living right over there near Utica, where I was born. But Marse George was po', and he sure found out you can't make no crop without a start of darkies. So he writ home to Virginia for to get some darkies. All they sent him was 4 men's and old Aunt Harriet for to cook. One day, Marse George and his uncle, Mr. John Davenport, now there was a rich man for you. Why, he had 2 carriage drivers. They rid over to Grand Gulf, where they was a selling slaves off in the block. And Mr. John told Marse George to pick himself out a pair of darkies to mate so he could get himself a start of darkies for to crop his cotton and that. So Marse George picked out my pappy first. My pappy come from North Carolina. Then he seen my mammy, and she was big and strengthy, and he wanted her powerful bad. But like I told you, he didn't have enough money to buy 'em both. So his Uncle John say he'd buy mammy, and then he would loan her over to Marse George for pappy. And the first child would be Mr. John's, and the second Marse George's, and likewise. Mammy was a Missourian named Marilyn Napier Davenport, and Pappy was named Martin Newsom. Darkies lived in little old log houses with dirt chimneys. That is, the rest of the darkies did. They kept me up in the big house, being mammaless and all. Mostly I slept in the tunnel bed with Miss Mary Jane till I got so big they had to make a pallet on the floor for me. There was Mr. Bryant, Mr. A.D., Miss Marthy, Miss Ann, Miss Helen, Miss Mary Jane, and Mr. George, all belonging to Marse George and Miss Marguerite. Mammy was a field hand. She could plow and work in the field just like a man, and my pappy, he done the same. Mammy, she hated housework like me. I just naturally loves to be out running round in the field and about. I never liked to do work round the house, none at all. We wore Lowell clothes and brass-toed brogans. Miss Marguerite made our dresses and that, and after Aunt Harriet died, she done the cooking, too, for all the slaves and the family. She fixed up dinner for the field hands, and I taken it to them. Marse George had old powder horn. He blowed mornings for to get the darkies up for day, so they could come to work, and they worked till sundown. We growed corn and taters and cotton plenty, and we had grand orchards and penders, then sheeps and hogs and cows and that. Miss Marguerite had a piano, a cornet, a flute, and a fiddle. She could play a fiddle good as a man. Lord, I heard many as 3 fiddles going in that house many a times, and I just can see her little old fair hand now playing just as fast as lightning a tune about my father he cried, my mama she cried. I wasn't cut out for the army. Old Captain Jink, my horse, me think, but feed his horse a corn and beans, and sport the gals by any means, 'cause I'm a captain in the army. All us children begged to play that, and we all sang and danced. Great goodness. When the war come, Marsh George went to fight back in the Virginia. Us all thought the Yankees was some kind of devils and were just scared to death of 'em. One day, Miss Mary June, Helen, and me was playing, and we seen men's all dressed in blue coats with brass buttons on the bosoms, riding on big fine horses right up to the porch, and say to Aunt Dahlia, where she was sweeping, "Good morning, ma'am. No men's about?" When she told 'em what no men's about, that was for the keys and to the smokehouse, and went and helped themselves and loaded the wagons. Then they went out in the pasture mongst the sheeps and killed off some of them. Next they went to the buggy house and all together shook down the carriage so we never could use it no more. Yes'm, they done right smart of mischief round there. Some of the darkies went off with the Yankees. My brother Howard did, and we ain't heard tell of him since. I'll tell you about it. You see, Mr. Davenport owned him, and when he heard about the Yankees coming this way, he sought his white driver and Howard in the carriage with all his valuables to the swamp to hide. And while they was there, the white driver, he went off to sleep, and Howard was prowling around, and we just think that he just went off with the Yankees. You mean hoodoo? That's what my pappy done to my mammy. You see, they was a fussin', always a fussin' about first one thing, then another, and mammy got mad 'cause papa slipped her clothes out of her chest and taken over to the other gals for the dance in. And when he brung 'em back, mammy could see fingerprints on 'em where he been turning them round, and she sure was mad and fighting. She could lick him too, 'cause she was bigger. Well, one day Pappy came in and say to Mammy, "Does you want to be bigger and stronger than what you already is?" And Mammy, she said, said yes. So next day he brung her a little bottle of something blood red with some looked like gourd seed in the middle of it. And he told her to drink it if'n she want to be right strong. Well, from the first drink, she fell off. Place of walking off, she just stumbled and got worser and worser till she plumb lost her mind. For a long time, they had to tie her to a tree. Then, after the war, she left Mr. Davenport's and just traveled about over the country. I stayed on with Miss Marguerite, helping her just like I'd been doing. One day, Mammy came after me, and I run and hid under a pile of quit and like to smothered to death waiting for her to go off. Next time she come, she brung a written letter to Miss Marguerite from the Free Bin Board and taken me with her. He just went from place to place till I got married and settled down for myself. I had 3 children, but ain't none of them living now.